Hey, friends. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to share a quick disclaimer with you all. Today, we'll be discussing some honest conversations around sexual assault. So, as a content warning, please take care of yourself while listening and don't be afraid to hit the pause button and walk away if you need to. Now, on with the show.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Unqualified Hour on the SunDaze Journey Podcast. We are your hosts, Alexis Carthan
and Mary-Beth Meagher.
And we are back with part 2 of our last conversation. And our last Unqualified Hour episode, we discuss how to pivot when you feel like your goals are off track. And then we touched on how to deal with, I guess, saying goodbye to your goals or a dream. But this episode, we wanted to kind of follow up with that with the part 2. And I'm going to let Mary-Beth really dive into this one today because this is her thing. But again, we have these episodes of the Unqualified Hour to just share our raw and unfiltered thoughts on certain topics. Again, we're not professionals, but we have professional life experience. So that is what these are. So just grab a seat, grab your tea, your coffee. We are on cups 2 and probably 5 today.
Literally.
And and just get ready. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, so as a quick disclaimer, today's chat will air on the heavier side. So first, to ease in with a lighter note, just to break the ice. Alexis, what is a recent experience you had that brought pure joy, even if only for a few minutes?
Okay, so I've been into my dragons.
Yes.
So the third installment of the Empyrean series has officially hit the shelves. And I went and got the book. I went to go get a physical copy of a book at a physical brick and mortar bookstore. Because Imagine. In 2025, I will get a book. First of all, I used to love like going to Barnes and Noble back in the day. I'm very much still a Barnes and Noble member. Like, let me know if you need my number to get your 25 or whatever 10% off.
Duly noted.
But don't listen to us, Barnes and Noble. We're not scamming the system at all. But I used to love doing that. Like back in the day, like that's how me and my cousins and my best friend, like we would like spend some of our time, like true nerds. We would go to the Barnes and Noble at our strip mall in Columbus, Georgia. Shout out to the crew. And it's my first introduction to pumpkin spice lattes.
Naturally.
That's just what we did. And I truly miss doing that. I know I was telling you like a couple weeks ago about me being a part of the Kindle Unlimited gang. Yeah, and I still am. But I just thought it would be like such a rewarding and like refreshing, nostalgic experience to go get a physical copy of a book on the day that it released. Kind of like Twilight when that happened. That was the thing. But that's my experience, and it was lovely. I took a video of me pulling it off the shelves.
Love that for you.
No, it was great. What about you? What's brought you joy in the recent weeks?
Well, we are about to have a mind meld situation because mine also involves the physical copy of a book.
Nerds.
I know.
Complete nerds. So we love books.
We do. Sometimes you need to escape into fantasy
Yes,
land for a while.
for sure.
So, my pastor has a 13-year-old daughter
Oh.
with whom I love to pieces and spend a lot of time with. And our dates that we do involve heading to the local library
That's
and
cute.
spending all afternoon there and perusing the shelves and giving each other book recommendations. And
what kind of recommendations does a 13-year-old have for a 30-something-year-old woman?
I have been trying to get her on the Harry Potter bandwagon. She won't do it, but she loves post-apocalyptic books, and that is a genre of choice for me as well. So we do swap recs back and forth. I can't necessarily claim to have read the books she tells me to read, but I am open to her thoughts on the subject.
Maybe you can put her on like the Hunger Games.
She has read the Hunger Games, and she's a
love
fan.
that.
I do too.
That was great.
So yeah, we spent last Saturday together at the library, and it's just so wholesome.
Yeah.
I am kind of astounded that as a teenager, she wants to hang out with me, that she actively chooses that, but she does, and it brings me joy.
Yeah, that's nice. That's so, look at you giving back to the youth of today. That is very lovely. Young people keep you young though. You gotta, so you can stay hip with the lingo.
Listen, this Gen Alpha jargon that is coming out of kids these days.
A different
what
language.
Are you saying?
A different, you know what is wild to me? And this so off topic, but the way they text.
Oh, I know.
How they like eliminate random letters. And like make random acronyms that are not widely known.
Correct.
What the heck is that? Like IDK, we everyone was on board with that.
Right, because that one actually makes sense.
LOL. You know, like we all collectively as a unit agreed upon.
Right. We weren't just arbitrarily deciding this off the cuff.
And expecting our friends to read our minds is, maybe that's not even how it works. Maybe it's not. But that's what it seems like to me when I happen to stumble upon a youth of today's like Instagram account or a TikTok account. I'm like, what are y'all even saying? I am on Urban Dictionary way more than I would like to admit.
Agreed. I feel like as millennials, we came to this consensus by committee, whereas Gen Alphas, they're just like, this is the word of the day.
Someone's going to say it, and it may or may not catch on, but even if it doesn't, we're going to continue to say it. What the heck? Oh my gosh. Anyway.
The future's in stable hands.
Yeah, sure. Sure, Jan. I'm just kidding. I believe the children are our future.
Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Amen. I don't want to do it. Okay. All right. Serious.
This could go in so many tangential
We love the
directions.
Kids. We do. We love the children.
We do. We also needed to laugh for a few minutes because
yeah.
This will be like I mentioned, a heavier discussion. As Alexis hinted at, we'll be exploring the question today of how to recover when you don't reach a goal. So if you missed part one of this 2-part installment, scroll back in our feed to catch up, then return to join us for this episode. And if you are tracking along with us, we're thrilled to have you. So let's jump into it.
Let's get into it.
Deep
Right,
breath.
deep breaths. Before you even do this,
go ahead.
I just want to say that I understand like what this is going to entail, and I'm proud of you for doing this.
Aw,
So
thank you, friend.
I'll say it again, but you need to hear that before you continue.
I received that. Thank you. I appreciate you. And to sort of lay the foundation, I suppose, I was initially struck with the idea for this episode in November 2024 while watching Vice President Kamala Harris's concession speech at her alma mater, Howard University. And I use vice president in the present tense because she is in our hearts.
Forever will be.
Forever and ever. Amen. And during those tearful 10 minutes I spent hooked on her words, Harris managed to articulate a universal human truth that has been churning inside of me over these past few years. And that is, we don't always achieve the goals we set out to pursue.
Yeah.
No matter how much effort, commitment, motivation, or sheer hope and belief we put forth, sometimes the results fall painfully short. And in circumstances like this, how do we resist the urge to label ourselves failures? How do we salvage lessons from the rubble of those broken dreams? And that's what I've been wrestling with.
Yeah.
What's more, I know I am certainly not alone in this particular wrestling match. So I figured let's talk about it. Let's bring it to the pod.
Yes.
And to set the stage for our conversation, I wanted to share some key excerpts from Vice President Kamala Harris's speech. She said, and I quote, "The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for. I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign, the fight for freedom, for opportunity, for fairness, and the dignity of all people. That is a fight I will never give up. So don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. And don't ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before. Do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. This is a time to organize, to mobilize." And then she goes on to say, I'll close with this. There's an adage that a historian once called the law of history, true of society across the ages. Only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. So let us fill the sky with the light of a billion brilliant stars. So,
yeah.
Again, exhale as we
I just
let
like I
that
feel like I'm
marinate.
I know you're holding your breath too. Like it's a lot to digest. I know in our last episode of the Unqualified Hour, we really talked about we hit pretty hard on the recent inauguration. So like it makes sense for us to bring this up as well. And because a lot of the things that we are all feeling is rooted in disappointment, grief, and in a lot of it feels like failure. But it also feels good to hear those words again, because I hadn't heard them in a while.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just honestly, like, I'm just to break the ice here. So like, yeah, I don't think I would have had it in me to get up there and do this.
I know. So
You
brave.
know, it is very brave to say that, and also to kind of put on face in any way and bring and pull some positivity out of such a horrible situation.
Yeah. And to personalize it for the next several minutes, I hope you'll bear with me, friends.
Yes.
I have known for quite some time that I would eventually reach a point when I felt ready to share my own experience of falling short. To be transparent, our once and future vice president inspired me to do so. But I also wanted to hold off until revisiting this season of my life would just graze a scar and not open a bleeding wound. I also want to acknowledge that listeners, wherever you are in this process, however you feel about your own unfulfilled goals, it's important to know that all your emotions are valid. You have permission to name them, to recognize them, to acknowledge them, and to process them without minimization. Because the harsh realization that we don't necessarily win all the battles we fight can cause many intense, strong emotions to surface at different times. As Alexis mentioned, you might feel disappointment, confusion, anger, self-doubt, frustration, shame, or even grief. I would encourage you to let these emotions come in waves. Don't repress them or make yourself wrong for them. Emotions are information. So listen to what they communicate. I promise, as counterintuitive as this might sound, the sooner you pause to honor what you're feeling, the depth of it, the breadth of it, the fullness of it, the sooner you'll move through those emotions and into a space of healing. And I say that as someone who has lived the stark reality that it's possible to be on the right side of a battle and not come out victorious in the way you might have thought victory looks. I was sexually assaulted in 2017, and it took me months to even be able to admit that to myself. It took me another 6 months to admit it to another human being. And then it took me some time after that to confess it to my husband. Then I waited a couple years before I could no longer deny that it was time to report the incident in a legal capacity. So in 2019, I filed a complaint, and the court proceedings began. However, because the pandemic was not too far off at that point in time, when the case was assigned a lawyer and a legal team, and we knew that a hearing was imminent, the judicial system was so backlogged due to COVID that I was not even in a deposition room until mid 2020. So I had constant meetings over the phone with lawyers, but it was always the same runaround of maybe the hearing is scheduled for next week, maybe it's scheduled for 3 months from now, maybe it's on the books and it will be canceled 3 days later, and maybe we don't know when it will occur. Yeah. So I found myself in this space of constant hypervigilance where I had to be ready, but for what? I didn't know. So I just felt as though my life was in this waiting room, that I might have to drop everything to answer a phone call that would take 2 hours one afternoon, and maybe it would amount to some kind of momentum and maybe it wouldn't. Or I had to rearrange my entire schedule because the trial is set. Oh, wait, no, it's not. And that does something to the nervous system. So I just told myself that the fight is worth pursuing because I don't want anyone else to come into contact with the person I had a terrible experience with. And if that meant my life was in a state of upheaval for however long it took, then at least another person would not have to follow in those extremely uncertain footsteps. Or at least maybe the path would be slightly less convoluted for them. And that became my North Star. That became the rallying cry and the marching order. And I want to be honest about the fact that I received no personal benefit from this. It wasn't a civil proceeding. therefore I would receive no financial settlement for this. It was not a criminal proceeding, therefore a prison sentence or conviction was not even on the table. It was through the Department of Health, because this happened in a medical context. So all I wanted was this person's license to be revoked so they couldn't hurt anyone else. That's all I wanted. I had nothing to gain except the belief in a somewhat healthier, safer system. And when the case finally made it to trial, Zoom trial, because hello, pandemic. And I'm honestly grateful for that because I didn't have to physically sit in a courtroom. Jesus was looking out for me in that regard. I was able to do it in my own home with my husband in the next room. So there was a level of cognitive dissonance. I at least could take care of myself in the environment I was in at the time. I recognize that's not a privilege everyone has, and I can at least take that away as a positive. But after a 3-hour cross-examination in which I sat there expressionless, poker face on, as the opposing side told me, and they did not mince words on this, I, the witness, have a history of being dishonest and not telling the truth and fabricating details, that I am therefore untrustworthy, and my account of what took place is not real and factual and credible and believable, for that matter. And I think that's what hurt the most, because honesty is such a core value of mine. I had no reason to make this up. I stood to gain no benefits from it. It cost me something. So there was no logical explanation as to why I would fabricate an incident of this magnitude and take it all the way to court for what amounted to 3 years by the time we actually saw the inside of a hearing. But the judge listened to those character accusations. And when she ruled in favor of the other party, she made it clear that her verdict was because she did not believe that what I said was true and not, in fact, a lie. And I had to digest that. I had to sit with it, in the mess, in the rage, in the sadness, in the feeling of helplessness that I could not change her decision or that outcome. I couldn't even defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had a choice to make.
Yeah.
Once the dust settled, I could either take on their assumptions of me as an indictment of who I am. I could either let that become my identity, or I could rest that I know who I am, and I know what occurred, and I know what I set out to accomplish. And even though I missed the mark, I don't regret any actions I took to reach that inflection point. And I would not have erased the years of hardship. In fact, I would walk the road all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to look myself in the mirror and determine what message I would walk away from this experience with.
Mm-hmm.
I had to shift my view of the whole ordeal from unsuccessful or a waste of time or a vain attempt,
Yeah.
or any other number of descriptors I used to minimize the incident.
Mm-hmm.
And I gained new appreciation for the courage, the resilience, the empathy, the clear sense of self that was required to do this in the first place, to
Yeah.
take it on no matter the results. And
Mm-hmm.
all of that was hard won. It was not earned in vain.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, that took so much work of self-reflection and tons of therapy, if I'm being honest. But we can't always define success in such binary terms the way this culture tells us to.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't turn out the way I hoped it would. That is an inarguable, inescapable fact. But was it all for nothing?
Mm-hmm. No. Let's take a beat.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Not just for me, but I know other so many women that have a similar experience, that have been in your shoes, and one could only hope to be as brave and to share the experience.
Thank you.
I don't take that lightly, and I'm grateful to you for laying this out there and like your experience, because unfortunately it's not a unique experience,
Exactly.
but it is unique that one would share it on a mic with God knows how many people. And I don't think that you should take that lightly, and you should truly give yourself all the pats on the back for that. I remember you sharing this with me while you were going through the this experience, but for the people that are listening, I would love if you're willing to hear you share like how you arrived at these conclusions? Like, I know you obviously had professional help, not just two girls on a mic. um but like, what was the process like for you to arrive at this conclusion? How did you reshape your or shift your perspective from, oh, I am, I've lost this, like I'm a failure, or all of the things that you name, to, what, I am not those things. I am resilient. I am powerful in my own right. I am strong. you know how did you do that? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, it took a willingness to listen, receive, and accept the words that others were kind enough to speak over me, to not have blinders on,
Yeah.
but to absorb the feedback of those around me. And again, Jesus looking out, I
Always.
am blessed enough to have a community that will do that for me, that will carry me along when my legs feel weak and my feet feel heavy. And again, I know that's not everyone's story, so I want to be honest about the privilege that is baked into that. But one piece of feedback I received from someone whose voice carries influence in my life was that, having watched me walk through this from sort of a bird's eye view, she was able to point out that had I not stepped into the ring and fought for justice, I would not have been able to release the guilt and the shame that I placed on my own shoulders. I would not have been living as free and as open and as abundantly as I was able to, in spite of the circumstances. I would not have been able to fall deeper in love with my husband and cultivate such a strong, robust, secure relationship, because our marriage was on the rocks during this. And not that I think there's a magical cure for marital issues, but we sharpened and strengthened one another in the midst of walking through the ordeal hand in hand. We grew a deeper level of connection and intimacy with one another. And I am so grateful for that.
Yeah.
I would not have discovered that I have such a passion for the outdoors, and nature is therapeutic to me. And when I'm stuck in my own head, the antidote to that for me is to go for a hike and immerse myself in creation and feel the ground beneath my feet and let it root me in the present and find healing outside of the thoughts swirling in my head. I also would not have realized that I'm more than someone who cares about justice. I am a justice warrior. I
There you go.
have the capacity and the capability to stand in the gap and dig in those trenches and put my money where my mouth is. It's more than just lip service for me. It's a value, and it's a conviction, and it's a way of life. And I don't know if I would have believed that about myself otherwise. So through those experiential nuggets and the wisdom of this person in my life calling that out and drawing it to my attention,
Yeah.
I slowly let myself believe that I am not defined by this, and there is gold to be mined in the rubble, and there is beauty to be cultivated from the ashes.
That is so real. I hate this. I hate this so much, but so many times in our lives, I can speak for myself, really. It's the only person I can speak for. I have had not so many times, but a lot of times in my life, I've had very tragic and sad things happen to me and my family, and that truly changed who we are to our core, right? And whether or not it involved like reaching a goal or not, but just like these events in our lives that change how we move, what we do, and what the world gets from us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It reminds like a long time ago. Did you ever watch This Is Us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the creator of This Is Us, I believe it is the creator or like the writer, the head, somebody, lost their father in real life. And I remember reading this article, and he said that after they lost this parent, this parental figure, that event was the hinge on which their life swung. And that like resonates with me. And honestly, it sounds like your story as well. Like maybe that's not my whole life, but that catastrophic event or that horrible moment in my life, this miss, changed me so much, but it still empowered me to do something greater and to find a different type of meaning in my life. And I don't know why I'm thinking about that article that I read years ago, but that really resonated with me. And what you're saying is resonating with me now. Like you literally took what happened to you and made it into something that was almost like happening for you, like this new perspective that you have on like your desire to seek justice and rooting yourself further in your values of like being an honest and transparent person. And I want to call that out and just say that that is admirable. And yeah, I think it's something that a lot of us can truly relate to, like feeling like, you don't, when you have these horrible experiences, like you don't want it to just end like there, like you want to find some type of beauty, and sometimes you don't, like you just don't. Like I can think of a few things where like it's just like, okay, no, that's just shitty. Like
Yep.
but at the end of the day, like if you can pull something beautiful out of a horrible, tragic situation, I think that's, like you said, gold.
I want to equally call that out in you, because what you're saying is so poignant. There are these moments in our lives where we almost feel like we can write the chapter of before and after. Like they're bookends of who we were versus who we are versus who we'll become. And it's so easy to be dragged down by the minutia of it all, to not even see the next step forward, let alone the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And you're totally right. Sometimes there is no meaning to be made. Sometimes it just sucks, and that's all right too.
Yeah,
There's
I think that's
permission for that.
Yeah, I think that's like very important to discuss in a conversation like this too. Like just to point this out that, while everyone might not have the resources to fight back or, to seek justice, getting through it is also a win.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And I do think one action all of us can take, regardless of our circumstances, and there's no timeline for this. There's no formula for it. There's no one size fits all equation. And it is not a magic cure or a quick fix remedy, but whenever you're able to reach this juncture in your own story, it is helpful to, as you said, Alexis, shift the perspective and reframe the narrative. So for anyone out there, if you've bought into this common assumption that an unmet goal is an abject failure, it might be time to reframe your definition or your idea of failure into an opportunity for growth. Just because you were unable to accomplish a goal for any number of reasons doesn't mean this defines you or diminishes your self-worth. So I just wanted to offer some questions to reflect on that might help you reframe this experience and cultivate a more balanced perspective on it altogether. And if these resonate or connect with you, please take them. If not, come up with your own questions and just allow yourself to be in that space of discomfort. It's not gonna feel comfy, but just maybe allow yourself to sit there and ruminate on what comes to the surface and what feels true for you. But if these are helpful, I just want to read through them. What valuable lessons have I learned in the pursuit of this goal? What progress was made, even if I missed the target outcome? What circumstances influencing this outcome were not in my control? What areas can I take responsibility for? And what areas can I extend myself grace and compassion in? What adjustments could have potentially changed the final result? For example, create a more realistic timeline, find an accountability partner, break the goal down into manageable steps. What are some kinder ways to describe myself that could replace the label of failure? For instance, I am still in process. I am more than my lowest moments. I am stretching outside my comfort zone. I am committed to growth. And I am open to continue trying. And finally, what can I take away from all of this to shape my future endeavors? How does that hit you, Alexis?
I mean, it sounds like to me we all have some homework to do. We definitely have some homework to do. I mean, this hits home. I can think of so many times in my life where, I know in our last episode, I mentioned like, I'm still trying to reach my goals. I don't know what y'all are talking about. But, I can't think of some times in my life where things happened and I'm like, why did this happen this way? Or like, why did this happen to that person? And how could we have like done this differently? Like, I feel like I should have done, and we can talk about all the things that are associated with that grief, disappointment, but I think that this is a good jumping off point for like after you maybe while you're in the midst of trying to work yourself through this and walk through the valley. Maybe you're on the other side of it and you feel stronger, but I think these are great questions to ask yourself. So thank you for sharing those.
Of course. And I think it's also important to touch on the reality that there are no easy answers.
Mm-mm.
This is a universal human experience, but it's also a unique one to all individuals. And no two stories will look exactly the same, but the hurt is ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And one moment you might feel healed, the next moment you might spiral backward a few steps. And there's space for that. There's grace for that. It won't be a linear journey, and it won't have any cut and dry action steps. Sometimes we have to figure that out for ourselves through a little bit of trial and error.
Or a lot.
Or a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap this up and put a bow on it. Dude.
I feel like we've been breathing a lot throughout this episode.
This is just a full breathing exercise.
This is really a breath work practice.
It's truly breath work. Just everyone take deep breaths. They're gonna be like, why are they like hyperventilating on the mic? Yeah, thank you again for leading us through that and tying it up with those great questions and kind of actionable steps that we can take to walk ourselves through recovering from not reaching a goal or some sort of desire.
Yeah.
I think it's time for our favorite segment.
Let's do it.
And I'm gonna go first.
Absolutely. I feel like I've talked so much over the past hour. So I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, man. I'm about to give my flowers to you. Like before I even like hit the record button, I was like, she's she's gonna get the flowers today and we're gonna give her all the props. Like, what are you saying? Yeah, I'm not gonna take that back. That's what you're doing. That's what you're getting. You deserve it. And I told you I was gonna say this 87 times throughout this episode, but it's an incredible amount of like strength, and I think you're a very honest person. So,
thank you.
and like amount of transparency that you just gave us, and I don't take that lightly. That's what the SunDaze Journey is about. That's why we created this beautiful, humbly beautiful platform and community so that people can feel heard and seen, and that they share their journeys. Like, not everything has a beautiful end, and but you can like shift the perspective. You can take what you've learned and turn it into something positive. And I think that that's exactly what you did. That's what you showed us. And again, like, I know that there's no one size fits all for this kind of event, this kind of trauma. And I don't want anyone listening to this who might be going through the same thing to think that we're like, oh, if you're not doing this, and like you're not living no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what Mary-Beth is saying. But even still, I am grateful to you for sharing this story. And I know that there has to be at least one other person on this planet that will be grateful to hear this too. And so my flowers will permanently be at your feet, my friend.
Oh, I received that. Thank you. Thank you for those sincere words. I know they came straight from your heart. And I also want everyone to know that Alexis is not new to this conversation. We have been talking about a version of this for years now, and you have always just been a friend who is so safe and so supportive. So I want to make sure that you know that, and I would be remiss not to share that with you.
Listen, that is so sweet. Thank you very much.
Of course. I want to give my flowers to VP Kamala Harris.
Turn up.
We started this discussion with her. Let's end it with her. She is the president of our hearts, souls, minds, alternate universes.
Are you saying she didn't win? Because I thought that we were all whatever.
We're about to launch a conspiracy on this podcast.
They're going to be like, who are these girls?
The FBI is going to come knocking.
They're totally come on.
Have at it. We've just proven over the last hour that we can fight back.
Right? Well, you have. I haven't.
But I know you can.
I know. I mean, I have you to lead us through.
We have our vice president to lead us, and
that's correct.
I don't think that she was in, this is my opinion, please don't take it as a prescription, but I don't think she was placed in the most effective position to succeed with her campaign, but I think she did a rockin' job.
Yeah.
And she took the scraps she was thrown and turned them into a movement and a coalition and a beacon of hope and change for folks across all backgrounds. The way she exemplified reaching across the aisle, reaching across class and race and culture and geography and just built a group of people hungry for something more than what we have was nothing short of inspirational.
Yeah.
And I sort of feel chills and butterflies in my stomach just thinking about it because we were so close and we owe that to her. And even the combination, the rare blend of confidence and humility that she demonstrated to stand on the steps of Howard University and deliver that clarion call to every one of us who want what she wants was just a summary of everything we've been discussing today.
Yeah.
And I want to just leave us with that.
That's it. Well, guys, we are at our time. I think, well, we don't have time. We can talk as long as we want. This is our podcast.
Facts.
But we will leave you guys with that today. I think that was, again, another beautiful summary of today's discussion. Do you have anything else to add before we?
I would just love for everyone who listened today, if you feel so inclined, to just think of someone in your own life who inspires you to cultivate that same posture of growth and resilience. But also, please be compassionate with yourself.
Yeah.
I know this is a tough subject matter to grapple with. And like we've said so many times, there is no prescriptive antidote. The only way out is through. So love on yourself, love on someone who's in your corner and in your community, and let's put our boxing gloves on.
Yeah. She's a fighter. Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Well, as always, be sure to rate and subscribe the podcast on all of your favorite podcast channels or platforms. We have all the resources, all the things on our website, so be sure to check that out. SunDazeJourney.com. Share your story, share your journey, share your truth. We got you. Like we will share it on the air. We will share it on the site. We might even put it in the newsletter, which you should also subscribe to. We have a lot of things and a lot of ways to stay connected with our community, both on the mic and on the web. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And I think that's all for today. We love you for listening. You're amazing.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.